Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be breaking down how people don't really argue against God, or at least a lot of people. They simply try to discredit the Bible so that it looks less reliable or stupid. So let's get right into it. Please comment your thoughts down below.
I may have misheard you, I don't know. But you said something to the effect that the Bible says that there will be people in heaven that have never heard of Christ.
Absolutely correct. Hebrews chapter 11 in the New Testament gives a partial list of people who will be in heaven who never had the opportunity to hear about Christ. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute, obviously never heard about Jesus. They were born hundreds of years before him. But in humility, they put their faith in God and they'll be in heaven. But Jesus and the Bible do insist the only reason they will be in heaven is because Jesus bled and died on a cross for their sin. They're not going to be in heaven because they were good boys and good girls. They were all sinners, the same way I'm a sinner. But they, in humility, trusted God.
So, that's kind of confusing because I just, they lived way before Christ. So what happened to them until Christ came around?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
I mean, he says, no man cometh unto the Father but by me. You're claiming that they came to the Father by him somehow. I mean, is that
right?
So what happened to them while they were waiting or whatever?
Well, while they were alive, they never heard about Jesus, right?
After they died.
But God's Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, draws all people to himself. And Abraham and Moses and Rahab chose to respond to God's Spirit drawing them. Now, God applies the death of his son Jesus to their lives. But they never heard about Jesus, so they didn't understand that. But in humility, they're saying, God, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm trusting you to get me to heaven. They put their faith in God, humble faith.
Okay.
Now, when they died, what happened? Well, my understanding is the same thing happened to them that happened to us. When I die as a follower of Christ, my body goes into the ground and rots.
Late for work, I gotta go.
But my soul, my personality goes into the presence of God. And then when Christ returns a second time, my body will be resurrected, reunited with my soul, and I'll spend eternity with Christ in heaven, along with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute.
So what about, does that apply to people after Christ that haven't heard about him?
Well, that's the difficult question.
Right.
And that's my point in my conversation with him, which was, I do not know specifically how God will judge those who've never heard about Christ, because Christ never specifically addressed the issue. That's why I can't.
But didn't he say that no man comes unto the Father but by me? Isn't that?
He sure did.
Kind of?
Yeah, but obviously he knew that Moses and Abraham were going to be in heaven. And obviously...
But that's because they didn't have the Jesus to turn to while they were alive. I'm talking about people that just because of where they're positioned geographically or whatever, that they never heard about Christ.
Right. And you see, the point is, Jesus in the Bible never specifically addressed your question, so it'd be a little intellectually dishonest of me to add to the Bible and say, well, here it is, here's what it says. It doesn't say.
Well, I think he does when he says, no man cometh unto the Father but by me. Doesn't that address that issue?
Well, yeah. Moses is going to be in heaven because Jesus died on a cross.
I'm not talking about Moses, I'm talking about the guys after.
Yeah, but Moses is like your buds who lived AD but never heard about Jesus. Moses never heard about Jesus. But in humility, he put his faith in God. God applies the death of his son Jesus to Moses' life, and Moses will be in heaven. Is it not possible that the same thing is true for someone who lives after Christ, never heard about Jesus, but in humility responds to all the light that God gives them? God applies the death of his son Jesus to their lives, and they'll be in heaven. Is that not possible?
Well, the conclusion I come to is, he said, no man cometh unto the Father but by me. Therefore, if you're living and you haven't heard about Christ, you're not going to go to heaven because you're not accepting Christ, because you haven't heard about him.
Well, then why would Moses be going to heaven?
Well, that's different. He put his faith in God.
Yeah.
What about people that didn't even hear about God? They believed in Buddha or whoever.
Well, anthropology shows us that every culture has some type of belief in God. We as human beings have what Blaise Pascal called a God-shaped vacuum at the center of our being. No human being is going to be able to say, God, you didn't give me enough evidence. From creation, from conscience, from our innate drive to know God, God has left more than enough evidence for any one of us to be a theist.
I just happened to throw another person for Cain to marry. It just doesn't say anything about it in the Bible. It just kind of appears.
All right, what difference in your life today is it going to make whether I can answer your question where Cain's wife came
It
from?
shows that the Bible is not 100% true. Why aren't the dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible?
Okay, that's the same line of thinking. Keep it on. Man, there's no book anywhere in the world that gives us every detail. There's no history book of U.S. history that gives us every detail of U.S. history. There's no biology textbook that gives you every detail of biology. But you have the arrogance to sit there and say, because the Bible doesn't answer the question where Cain got his wife from, it shows the Bible's unreliable. That is so dishonest intellectually, that's scary. And yet that type of thinking is tolerated on a university campus. That's embarrassing, man.
The Bible is just a book to read.
Embarrassing.
The Bible is literature. It's a book of history.
Yeah, and there's no book that includes every detail of the particular issue the book is dealing with. For you to have the audacity to sit there and say, the Bible's incorrect because it doesn't tell me where Cain got his wife, is such convoluted, illogical, irrational thinking. It's embarrassing, man. It really is.
Which Bible do you use?
Now, what are some possible explanations for where Cain got his wife? Well, it's obvious that possibly Cain married one of his sisters.
Can you explain why a dinosaur bone?
Let me give you a second explanation. The Bible never says that God created only Adam and Eve. It's possible that God created other human life as well. And so Cain would have married a daughter of somebody else. Those are two options. I don't know which one's right, but guess what? It really doesn't matter a hill of beans to your life today where Cain got his wife.
Neither does
Stop
Jesus
playing
Christ.
games. Oh no, if Jesus spoke the truth, what he said is highly relevant to your life today and to my life. Yes, it
I
is.
can do anything in my life, and God does not play any role in it. I have my own decisions, I mean, if I decide to, if I decide to go out and shoot someone, I'm gonna go out and decide to shoot someone. God doesn't tell me to shoot someone. I'm coming to school here. Does God?
Yeah, that's right. And if you go out and murder people, on the day of judgment, God's going to hold you responsible for that, for murdering people. You're right, you're free today. God's given you a free will, and you can go out and blow people away. And you might even evade the police if you're tricky enough and smart enough. But there's coming a day of judgment, and you will stand before an all-knowing, all-powerful God, and he will hold you responsible for blowing people away. So don't tell me Jesus isn't relevant, because if he did speak the truth, you better watch out, because you'll answer to God for blowing people away, even if you get away with it in this life. But where Cain got his wife? No, sir. That has no relevance to your life at all.
Which book should we use?
What about the dinosaurs?
What about the dinosaurs? Well, why doesn't every U.S. history book at the University of Washington tell us where Abraham Lincoln slept every night of his life?
It's not
Don't you see what you're doing, sir? History is a selective account of what happened. And just because the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs is not the Bible saying there never were dinosaurs.
They're a pretty big event in the history of our.
Oh,
of
really?
what's going
Of what relevance to your life today are dinosaurs?
No, not to my life today, but it's important to how everything evolved on.
Oh, is it really? Of what significance to human development is a dinosaur?
Gasoline.
Just because the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs does not mean there weren't dinosaurs from a biblical perspective. The Bible's about 1,600 pages long. It begins with the creation. It ends with the return of Christ. That's an awful lot of time to cover in 1,600 pages. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of gaps, right? Right. Same way there are gaps in every U.S. history book, in every African history book, in every European history book. In every history book, there are gaps, bud. Come on, man.
I can put my faith in the reliability of the four Gospels and the teachings of Jesus.
Right?
But as a Christian, how do I put my full trust in an author such as Paul, who I know received the revelation from Christ through the light, through being blind? But how do I put my faith in and trust in his teachings in Romans, in the Corinthians, that give a lot of instructions for the church today? And an author such as the author of Hebrews, how do I put my full trust in?
You bet. Difficult question. The reason that I accept Paul's writings as authoritative, as reliable, is because the eyewitness community of Jesus accepted his letters as authoritative, as reliable. Paul's letters were some of the first New Testament documents written. 1 Corinthians, written in early 50s AD. Thessalonians, written shortly thereafter. And the eyewitness community accepted Paul's writings as authentic, as reliable testimony about Jesus. That's why I accept it. But you're right. Obviously, Jesus never saw them. They were written after Jesus. Thanks.
Distinction without a difference. That's just a rhetorical move. I mean, if you're making the same claim that Jesus Christ made, then you're both claiming that you're making the same truth claim. So then the question is, how do you propose to validate that truth claim?
All right, the way I propose to validate that claim is to plead with you to read the source documents, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, simply as historical narrative, and ask yourself, as you read the Gospels, does the historical evidence of the way he treated people, what he taught ethically, how he died, how he rose from the dead, point to him being a quack, or does it point to him being reliable? And you decide for yourself. Obviously, guys, I am convinced that Jesus is reliable. I don't think I need to state that baldly for you. I think you should be able to understand.
But guys, if you couldn't tell, when that guy was bringing up Cain and where he got his wife, that was trying, or an attempt to try to discredit Christianity. What you need to realize is that a lot of people don't actually have a valid argument for God, so they will try to discredit Christianity to make atheism look more logical or reasonable to believe. When you are talking to somebody or debating with somebody who does this, you should call them out. Obviously not in a rude or mean way, but it's okay to call out whoever you're talking with about this, because it is a very poor way to debate. So just keep that in mind when you're having a conversation or debating somebody on the topic of Christianity. They will probably try, or they could try, to discredit your position rather than actually arguing against it. So be careful for this, guys. Watch out. And I think that's it for the rest of this video. I really just want to equip you guys with some useful information that you might not already know. But thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Please leave a comment down below what you think. And that's it.